Despite all of the changes and injuries, Doc Rivers had his group just outside the playoffs. What about this year? Renewed energy. The health, it's in a better place. And so is the roster. Your team preview for the Clippers starts right now. It is good to have you on board inside our studios in Atlanta for the team preview for the Clippers for the upcoming season. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll put up 10 points on the Clips and get you A to Z on everything preparing you for the season. And to help you do that, we've got the czar, tough juice himself, Caron Butler. Guys, and I'll start with you, Coach, on this one. Point number one, Doc is still Doc, and we saw an example of that last year with what he did with this team, right?
He took a team last year that most people would have said maybe they win 33, 34 games, and he got them over 500, 42 wins, and they chased that playoff position down to the last week and a half or so, and they just couldn't hang on for it, but he did an incredible job last year.
To sit there, trades midseason are tough. When you deal with what they dealt with Blake Griffin, what he meant to that franchise, as you know, and all of that, how much more impressive does it make the fact that that team actually stuck together, Caron?
It was amazing because you take the identity of the team away. No more Chris Paul, Blake Griffin going in the middle of the season. No longer Lob City. You're dealing with a disgruntled star and DeAndre Jordan. You're trying to keep the momentum of that team in your favor. And he managed to do that with injuries to Patrick Beverley, Gallinari, all those guys, and they still managed to keep up the pace.
You know, also the attitude seemed to always be at the highest level. Now, they have high-energy guys when you think of Lou Williams and the returning Patrick Beverley. But how much does the culture, Coach, that Doc puts together help some of those players to overachieve? We always use that term, but what gets them to have that belief that we saw last year?
Well, think about it. Culture suffers when the pieces that you brought in and started to build that culture suddenly disappear. When two of your main three pieces are gone, then who carries the torch? Is DeAndre Jordan the guy that was going to carry it on, knowing that he had an opportunity to walk away at the end of that season? So I thought it was a very difficult spot, very difficult in the locker room, and particularly when you're missing guys like a Patrick Beverley can be a convincer in the locker room. He can go to a lot of those other guys and say, listen, we've got to do this. We need to pull this way. He wasn't there playing, so he had a voice, but it's not the same when you're not playing.
You know, got an opportunity when we did Summer League to chat with Doc a little bit, and he said he loves the team, and when he talked about them, he said, Caron, hey, we got a budding star in Tobias Harris. And I think some people may sneeze at that if they're not paying attention to what this guy did on the floor. What kind of growth did you see last season? Now, what do you expect moving forward?
I saw a ton of growth, a team that's 8th in offensive efficiency in the league. You look at Tobias Harris, he came over there, continued to show his versatility from an offensive standpoint. You can plug him in so many different spaces. You saw him in Detroit where, you know, it was going through him a lot, you know, with Drummond, and then he goes there, and now he's just playing with a different pace. He's catching the ball in transition, rebounding the ball, catch and shoot, off the dribble, you name it, he can do it.
They had a couple of guys, because we know Lou Will is always going to be able to score for you, let's be honest, at any time. But Tobias became a guy, Coach, that they could rely on. We saw that in games down the stretch of the season because that shot continues to improve for Harris.
When you're replacing Blake Griffin on the roster, you better be pretty good because the fans expect you to put numbers up on the board. And if you are the guy that's putting numbers up, then you have to be the guy that touches the ball a lot. And we saw that happen and even grow during the course of the remainder of the season when Harris got in there. And I think that's Doc developing confidence in him and Doc kind of figuring out, what can I do with this guy? What's he capable of doing within what I run offensively? I think there was growth through both ends of that.
The West is difficult. It's busy. It got busier in terms of presence of forwards. I don't think we're doing any spoilers here during our Clipper preview. So can Harris be an all-star? Even if he might be all-star worthy with his play, can he be an all-star in this?
I think what you're going to see with Harris is he's going to be all-star material, you know, in the Western Conference, because let's just face it, King James came over there. That spot is pretty much, it's a logjam at that position. So I think he's going to be a guy that's going to put up all-star numbers, just like Lou Williams, a budding teammate of his last year. Could have easily been an all-star game, all-star performance, numbers, but it's just so tough. The star power in the West is just unprecedented.
Coach?
A lot of bodies in the West, so you got to filter your way through all that. But I think one thing that will help give a little more consideration, is if the Clippers come out early and surprise people with wins, and it's Tobias that's leading them on their way towards the playoffs. That certainly would make an impact on others.
You know, they don't really have a singular face of the franchise. One of the things that was impressive about Doc's group, Karan, is how everybody, even though Lou Williams got a lot of attention, kind of went as one unit. Can Tobias Harris maybe be at the forefront of that group, and can he be the guy everybody looks to and says, okay, there's our guy to go get a bucket, there's our leading scorer, there's our answer offensively?
I think he has to be, because he's the veteran guy that's has to be relied upon night in and night out on a consistent basis. Gallinari is the other guy that consistently do that offensively, but the thing that hindered him over the last couple years is that he has not been available. So Tobias is a guy that's going to play games, going to be consistent. The teammates love him. They're okay with the system playing through him and playing off of him. So he is the face. He is the guy.
Coach, you're not going to sneak up on anybody. How do you deal from a coaching standpoint with players who now have to kind of understand that the target's a little bigger and the expectations from the opposition are going to be bigger, which means it may not be as easy as it's been for him to hide and kind of get his points?
We have a couple players on this roster who have been in other situations where there's been pressure on them. Avery Bradley came out of Boston. You had Patrick Beverley from Houston. So these guys, and they're going to form a pretty interesting backcourt between the two of them. I don't know if I want to be the guy trying to get the ball up over half court in 8 seconds with those two guys trying to guard you back there. They might take on a whole new identity this year because of the backcourt pressure. Maybe Doc Rivers comes out with a much improved defensive team this year, which will be a little bit different.
You know, I'll use that as kind of a segue because the pressure will be taken off Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, their top pick of their 2 picks they had in the lottery, because of the fact that the guard tandem is set. So he doesn't have to jump in and start at the point. But I know Doc likes a lot about him. And the first thing you look at is the length, because we've got a guy who maybe didn't get a chance to show what he could do at Kentucky because there were so many different options. But he's got the size to give you a lot of different things from a point guard perspective.
Yeah, and if he's ready, he's going to have his moments, because Doc, Sam Cassell being there as a developmental guy with this kid, he's going to really help him, you know, develop on the fly and get him out there, get him some time, get some minutes under his belt. And let's just talk about the battle with him and Patrick Beverley night in and night out in practice. You know, he's going to have him seasoned and prepared to play with the physicality of the game at that position.
You know, we've had a lot of talk, obviously, over the years, Coach, about guys from Kentucky and the one and done and all of that. We'll save that for another show. But most of them seem to find success. Does it help, in your opinion, when you had players that came up to your club kind of as rookies to have played at least in big games, under the microscope, had at least a little bit of that spotlight environment before they try and kind of face what the NBA has to offer them?
Without question. I can remember the one team had 3 of the guys had played 4 years in college, and that was the year we kept 4 rookies on the team. 3 out of the 4 rookies started for the team in Cleveland, and they wound up winning 47 games and making the playoffs. So they were a little bit more mature, but I have to tell you a quick funny story. We're going into the playoffs, and I'm meeting with the rookies, and one of them says, "Listen, Coach, you don't have to worry. We've been through a lot of big games, the 4 of us." Oh, okay. So we play Indiana the first night. They must have beat us by 80, it seemed like, that night. And we got in the locker room the next morning. I said, "Hey, oh, you big-time guys, boy. This is something new here, isn't the NBA playoffs?" So they think that they've had a lot of experience until they get into the NBA and find out what it's all about. But it does help, like you said.
Right at the back end of the lottery last year, guys, obviously a lot of talk about over the course of the last few months, Donovan Mitchell. How did teams miss out on him? Jerome Robinson is hoping to be that guy. He's a guy, when you talk to people around the draft, Karan, at a BC, they love his potential, but his name didn't seem to be as big. Is that maybe a help for him in a way to kind of go under the radar a little bit and to learn at this level?
Yeah, I think so, because you can come in and take a lot of people by surprise, you know, when you fly under the radar like that. You get a chance to develop your skill set on the fly, you know, get that much poise, opportunity, those times to correct and make errors on the fly. But also, you're going to, you know, like catch a lot of people sleeping. And that's what happens. You're not going to be on the scout report for a lot of people. You're not a household name necessarily right now. But if you continue to thrive in that system, which Doc Rivers is going to put these guys, young guys, in position to play 10 to 12 minutes a night, look, you can shock a lot of people.
I was going to say, because of the rotation, and as Karan mentions, look, where the team is going to be, they're not going to win the Western Conference. They're going to be in position where you're going to get the young kids some minutes, Coach. How valuable is that experience, even if, to your point with your rookies and your story, maybe it's not the most positive experience all the time on the floor?
I think we have to remember Doc Rivers was supposed to be a first-round pick, dropped to the second round. Very disappointed. Came in trying to make a point. Then he did not start until midway during the season. Eventually, he moved into the starting point guard position. He did it himself, so therefore, why would he not give another youngster who he feels has the ability to help on the team, whether that's a piece of the steady rotation or eventually moving into the starting lineup? You're playing for a coach who did it himself.
While we're actually talking during this segment, Lou Williams has put up 25 points somewhere. I don't even know if they're playing. Last year, there were a lot of people saying, hey, look, that guy deserves to be an all-star. It was that kind of season for Lou Will. We'll talk about it on the other side.